Okay, part two. So, signs. I've been thinking a lot, writing a lot on the philosophy forum about signs. So, if you get over this, idea that experience is a picture of the world, right? Once you sort of know that you're immediately in the world, you're not so eager to talk about concepts as if they're the kind of essences that Husserl wanted to believe in. So, even the little phonemes in my internal monologue are signs. They're the most, internal feeling of signs, right? But that's empirical. If someone could reliably give me a transcription of my interior monologue, well, that would be very scary, right? Because in some sense, the interior monologue just happens, right? And then we end up enacting responsibility for it. But in pragmatic empirical terms, we don't worry about people overhearing our interior monologue because they don't act like it is audible to them. I don't know if you remember, I also did this playful hypothetical situation of this couple. They start appearing in one another's dreams and having these conversations. And when they wake up in the morning, they start talking about it and they realize that they both remember the conversation in the same way. And this keeps happening. So eventually, they start to take this for granted. And when they wake up, they pour some coffee and they continue the conversation they were having in the dream. Because just by habit, they know that the other person was there, right? So our sharing of reality is like this. Our sharing of objective, external so-called reality is like this. It's this sort of expectation that the other thing, that there's this shared otherness, this shared world. But you might say it's only an empirical belief that dreams are private and the interior monologue is private. Okay, so signs. Signs are things in the world. Now, they're perceptual objects, right? Perceptual objects are given through eyes and ears. So, the same perceptual object in the world, it's going to be given differently to different people. So, when it comes to like sort of boring spatial objects, we can say, okay, yes, it's given in terms of aspects. That's not all that exciting until you say, well, the object basically is the ideal manifold of its aspects. But what's more exciting is that signs are especially radiant. And the reason to use this metaphor of radiance is to say that the meaning comes from the sign. Radiance is meaning, it's also significance. It's in the, beauty is in the beautiful object. The significance or meaning of the sign is in the sign. So if this is so sure sound image too, like if you hear, like you hear me right now, you hear what you might call the marriage of unrepeatable concrete quality and these repeatable forms, and you hear them through your ears, but you almost hear through the sound toward the significance or the pointing. That is the mystery right there. The same person could hear what I'm saying right now on a recording. Maybe they don't speak English. Well, then it's like they don't make much sense of it, but they probably know it's English or it's someone speaking. It's a human speaking. Someone who has never thought about philosophy, maybe like an 11-year-old boy, he probably thinks like this is boring, right? Like so the same, empirically present perceptual object, it radiates very differently. And it radiates very differently according to the history of the perceiver of the sign. So this is what you might call the historicity of meaning. In a certain sense, your entire past has led up to you hearing this very recording. Your entire past is sort of present in the way this very recording radiates its significance for you. And I take this to be one of the key themes in early Heidegger. So, connecting all of these themes, consciousness, in the primal sense, is the presence of, the sign, a presence that includes the quality of its significance. And I'm tempted to say that presence and quality are two words for the same thing. it's a tricky one. Almost feel like presence or being is the stronger word, but how are things there? They are there with their quality. Would we call them there at all without them being there in some way or another? Right? So they're there in their quality, or they're there through their quality. So being and presence and quality, they're all synonyms. And then, I think what Heidegger is trying to say is time is a truer name for being. But that's because when a thing shows itself, it only shows a face or a moment of itself. And it shows that moment as a moment. And to show itself as a moment is to hint at what the object hides from us, right? So presence is also always absence. For the object to appear with an identity, that means it cannot completely appear. So this is like what the phenomenologists called transcendence. The transcendence of the object is the beyond me-ness and the beyond nowness of this object, right? The river is not its waters now, but I experience and call its waters now the river. So in calling these waters the river, I also realize that there are other waters that are not here now, right? So the being, for the river to be here as a kind of unity, it cannot be all the way here. And it cannot be something that is inside my mind that is only mine. Language is fundamentally intersubjective. It is the we that is I and the I that is we. So, I've been obsessing over this lately. There is a way to read Plato and Heraclitus and Heidegger is all saying the same thing in different ways. Now, does it really matter what these historical human beings meant? How did the signs shine exactly for them? Well, I'm fascinated by that. I think it's a fun topic. But the point is to make these signs radiate with a maximum intensity toward a maximum joy and a maximum sense of concrete existence and at homeness, right? The point is to overcome alienation and to enjoy a sharing in possibility with others, right? So this is one of the reasons I like Bakhtin. Instead of trying to picture reality truly in this competition to picture reality more accurately than others, we realize that this is, for one thing, absurd. Why is this absurd? There's no way we can compare pictures unless we're already in the world together. So the picture approach was always absurd. It forgot that it presupposed the forum. And the forum it functions so transparently. It is so much what we do and how we comport ourselves that you can even overlook it theoretically. So you have people pretending to believe that their experience is a picture in the world. And then they go compare that picture with other people in the world. But it's like, what, are you comparing your picture of the world with people inside that picture of the world? Are you comparing your picture of the world with picture people? This is fundamentally absurd. And then they say that the picture is created by the brain, but the only brain they know is the brain in the picture. It's incoherent, right? It falls apart as soon as you think about it. But if everybody enacts the same picture comportment, everybody overlooks it together, right? And like you were talking about the consciousness subreddit, everybody tries to make this like weird neo-physicalistic mathematical theory of consciousness. They presuppose that consciousness is a stuff to be explained in the causal nexus. But this is a reading of consciousness as an ingredient of the world, an ingredient among other ingredients. Now, from my point of view, consciousness is the being or the presence of the world itself. Now, in some ways, this is an extremely idealistic view. In some ways, this is the perfection of idealism. But when you push idealism far enough, consistently enough, you get what Wittgenstein got in the Tractatus, right? He said that, you end up with pure realism, pure, unadulterated realism. So consciousness is the presence of the world itself from the point of view of the conscious entity. So consciousness is being, but it's the being or the presence of the shared world immediately. There is no picture between me and the world. And this, for some, is idealism. And in a certain sense, it evolves from idealism, because what idealism was right about was that the life world is meaningful and from a point of view. What idealism is wrong about is that everything is therefore made out of mind, right? In a certain sense, idealism is a kind of half escape from Cartesianism. It just tries to basically eliminate the external, because it sees accurately that everything that's important is internal. But what it forgets is that we talk to other people, right? Like, our fundamental desire is to share reality with other people. And even if philosophy is no longer seen as trying to create an accurate picture, it is still the attempt to point at and share in possibilities. So, idealism it's kind of awkward, like, oh, all is mind. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean we all live in individual pictures? Now, the more sophisticated ones will try to jazz up the system so that maybe you can contact other people, but you cannot do that without dropping ingredient ontology. What most people want to mean by mind is the internal, right? So I could call, ontocubism is pure realism, but it will sound like the most radical idealism to people who do not understand the ontological difference. And it's not easy to understand. It almost takes, and I feel like I want to say you're right on the edge of it, like, or you had it and you're still like trying to capture it so you can hold on to it with words. And, I don't want to come off like, oh, it's this mystical thing. It really is a conceptual thing, but it has this emotional payload because it's a beautiful conceptual thing. So we have to use this noun, right? Being is a noun. It's a sign in the world. Consciousness is a noun. It's a thing. So when you say that being or consciousness is not a thing, but the presence of things, you have to use a noun to try to point at something that is not a thing. And as far as I know, this is the only place in philosophy where you use a noun to point beyond entities altogether to their presence. And because it's the singular gesture in philosophy, I know very smart people who don't get it. Heidegger warns people, like, look, I get it, guys. I know that, most of you think that being is the most general concept and therefore it says nothing. But he's like, the question of the meaning of being is perhaps the most concrete of questions. So like very clever people, they're deaf to it. And it doesn't mean it's a personal failing. Like, Heidegger really hurt his reputation with his stupid political bullshit. He's also just this adventurous person who kept experimenting with styles, and I think that in his later work he took his earlier work for granted, and he wasn't writing for the average person. He wasn't trying to win over the man on the street, so he just did whatever the fuck he wanted. And then you got maybe annoying people that like try to preach Heidegger and this or that jargon. You got this idolatry, but this haunts all philosophy. Even people that pretend to prioritize the pointing paradigm, they still have this desire to humiliate and intimidate. And this gets us into that deep psychoanalytic stuff that we started with, like as our friendship took off. So that also plays a role here too. But I feel pretty good about this recording, and I'll stop now. And I hope this gives you some pleasure, and I hope I don't sound like too arrogant or something. To me, these are joyful ideas. I'm not trying to picture the truth, right? I'm trying to counterpoint. You've pointed. I'm trying to show you that we share in this possibility, or that we share in the world this way. So I need to, wait and see what you say back to me, to see if my pointing is successful and your pointing is successful. Our pointings will sort of converge. We'll have a sense of sharing in the world together, right? This higher sociology, right? And that is a cool way to, I think, approach philosophy.